In the news tonight, MPP Chairman Paul Afoko suspended indefinitely.
First ever Greater Accra Fishing Festival held.
And on the international front, South African President Jacob Zuma rules out tuition fees increases amidst protests. A very warm welcome. This is the news on Ghana Television and on GBC24. My name is Selikem Akola Chiapalu.
And my name is Akmene Avo Ajaja. Many thanks for joining us for News Hour.
In our very first story, the National Executive Council of the New Patriotic Party, NPP, has unanimously endorsed recommendations by the National Disciplinary Committee of the party to suspend its national chairman, Mr. Paul Afoko, indefinitely.
First Vice Chairman, Mr. Freddie Blay, becomes the interim national chairman of the party. This was confirmed by the NPP Communications Director, Nana Akomia, at a media briefing at the party's headquarters in Accra.
Following internal wranglings in the New Patriotic Party (NPP) over alleged misconduct of its national chairman, Mr. Afoko, a disciplinary hearing was set to investigate the issue.
On 13th October, the disciplinary committee submitted its report to the National Executive Committee. They had recommended that Mr. Paul Afoko be suspended from the position of national chairman of the NPP. So the meeting was called today to deliberate on that report from the disciplinary committee. Now at the meeting today, the National Executive Committee unanimously endorsed the recommendation or the report of the National Disciplinary Committee. Now by that endorsement, Mr. Paul Afoko is suspended from the position of national chairman of the NPP.
Some party faithfuls are wondering if the decision will not affect the party's gains ahead of the 2016 elections.
Well, any decision that is taken by anybody will affect the party one way or the other. The National Executive Committee is fully aware of the implications of any decision. Obviously, in the wisdom of the National Executive Committee, on balance, they believe that this is the interest of the party.
Earlier, there were reports of some scuffles at the party's headquarters between the party's security network, the Invisible Forces, and a group of supporters known as the Bolga Bulldogs. This resulted in the burning of a motorbike. When the news team arrived at the party headquarters, calm had been restored as there was heavy police presence. Meanwhile, per the NPP's constitution, Mr. Paul Afoko has 2 weeks to appeal to the National Council of the party against the recommendations of the National Executive Council.
The final batch of Ghanaian pilgrims who participated in the annual Muslim pilgrimage in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, are back home. About 340 pilgrims touched down at the Kotoka International Airport, and they were warmly welcomed by their families.
This was the atmosphere at the Hajj village in Accra. It was an exciting moment indeed, given that some were killed in a stampede following a crane collapse during this year's pilgrimage. At least 717 people taking part in the Hajj in Saudi Arabia lost their lives in that accident, while another 863 were injured. The accident happened while about 2 million pilgrims were taking part in the Hajj last major rite. It is the deadliest incident to occur during the pilgrimage in the past 25 years. During the Hajj, pilgrims traveled to Mina, a large valley about 5 kilometers from Mecca, to throw 7 stones at pillars called Jamarat, which represent the devil. The pillars stand where Satan is believed to have stood and tempted the prophet Abraham. According to the Hajj board, 19 Ghanaian pilgrims died in that incident and 7 died natural deaths. Members of the Hajj Agents Association were in Saudi Arabia and narrated the tragic incident in which some Ghanaians were involved.
1 point something million coming towards one point. You imagine how if something happen, yeah. So, but all is from Allah, and well, we had a very wonderful Hajj, but it was scary.
I will send the best wishes and the condolences to the bereaved family. We went through a hectic time during the stone throw. That is the second day of the Arafat. When we came back to do the rituals, there was a stampede, and some gallant men were fallen, and some were missing. As at now, we still have missing, cannot be found, and we have dead confirmed. So that was what happened to us in Mecca. A senior agent among us cannot be found as at now. We moved, the agents form a committee. We moved to each and every hospital, the sick beds and the mortuaries, and yet we can't find him.
According to the leadership of the Hajj Agents Association, final funeral rites will be performed for all those who died in Mecca. Reports indicate that the chairman of the Hajj board and other executives are still in Mecca looking for the Ghanaian pilgrims who are missing. So far, over 5,000 of them have arrived in the country safely. Meanwhile, the organization of this year's Hajj did not go without hitches. Some of them made their payment for the trip but did not get the opportunity to be airlifted to Saudi Arabia. The Hajj Agents Association says those people will be catered for next year.
It's still News Hour live on your news channel GBC24. A team from the British Broadcasting Corporation BBC visited GBC's news channel GBC24 in Accra. They interacted with fellow journalists of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, a fellow state broadcaster.
The team from the BBC News and Current Affairs section interacted with journalists from radio and TV divisions of GBC. Both teams shared their experiences regarding their operations. Later, the BBC team was hosted in the GBC24 studios, where they shed more light on the operations of the BBC as a global leader of news. James Harden is the Director of News and Current Affairs of the BBC.
There needs to be, in any journalistic organisation, a great deal of trust in reporters, editors, in the journalists that work for it, because fundamentally you cannot control from the top down what a newsroom does. Okay. You've got to make sure that people have good values, good instincts about asking questions, and then you really want to give them room to get on with it. Once you've got that, once you've got a sense of what your mission is, for us, the BBC, our mission is to inform, to make sure that everyone is informed. Then it's really about choosing. It's about choosing which of the stories you're really interested in, which you're not. We keep on asking the same questions. Does anyone know what's really going on here? Okay. And can someone explain what's happening?
He also touched on the TV license fee, which is the main source of funding for the BBC.
The BBC runs a license fee funding model. And we think that it's a really effective way of ensuring that the BBC best serves the public. And the reason for it is this. The BBC's job, its primary job, is, as I said, to keep everyone informed. And when you make a requirement of the public all to pay a license fee that, if it works, should deliver really excellent value for money. What it requires of the news organisation, whether it's the GBC or the BBC, is that one, we look to serve everybody. So it's not a news organisation that serves a particular part of a country or a particular group of people in a country. It tries to understand what's happening in the whole of that society.
The editor of Current Affairs at the BBC, Vera Kwakofi, said the BBC is always finding ways of making its audience appreciate events that happen around them.
My job as editor of News and Current Affairs is to look at how we tell stories that reflect the totality of the continent's experience. So we do the big geopolitical stories because those are always the headline news. But the challenge that I have is to ensure that we're reflecting the day-to-day life of ordinary Africans. We're reflecting the demographic makeup of the continent, because let's face it, the people who appear on news and current affairs are much older, they're much more established, they're official. The continent is made up, I think 60% of the continent is made up of people under the age of 25. We've got to find those voices on the air. We've got to reflect their experiences. We've got to make sure that we're telling the story of Africa back to Africa, but also explaining what Africa is about to the world.
The editor of the Africa section of the BBC, Solomon Mugera, explained how the BBC Africa section operates.
We look at stories that are coming from our regions, and we look at Pan-Africa. What are the stories that are coming from Africa? And also, what are the international stories that we want people in Africa to know about? Because let's face it, the world has become a village, a global village, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whatever is happening here in Ghana has got resonance to somebody in East Africa.
The team from the
Moving on to other stories, fishermen, fishmongers and other players in the fishing and aquaculture industry have been honored for their contribution to the development and sustenance of the industry in Ghana. At the first ever Greater Accra Region Fishing Festival in Pram Pram, Vice President Kwesi Amissah-Arthur asked fisher folks to use environmentally friendly methods and modern technology to increase their yield.
Through sometimes harsh weather conditions, these men brave the odds to ensure that every family is provided with the needed protein for a well-balanced diet. Annually, the fisheries sector contributes about 1.2% to the country's gross domestic product and 6% to the agricultural sector. Statistics show that the once vibrant sector is facing challenges due to natural factors and some bad farming practices. This has resulted in a sharp decline in marine stocks. For 2014, Ghana's total fish production was 413,000 metric tons, representing 38% of the country's fish production. Government has introduced the 5-year aquaculture plan to, among other things, improve production and marketing for the sector. This will see an increase in fish production to over 150,000 metric tons by 2018. Organizer of the festival, Mr. E.T. Mensah, called on investors to take a second look at the fisheries and aquaculture sector, which he says holds huge economic potentials. Sector Minister Madam Sherry Hani Haiti, the Fisheries Commission, and the Vice President Kwesi Amissah-Arthur handed over a $3 million cold store facility to the community. It has a capacity to take in large volumes of fish and also produces ice cubes for commercial purposes. Vice President Kwesi Amissah-Arthur said government is determined to turn around the fortunes of the fisheries sector.
Every industry requires the injection of capital for innovation and for expansion. Therefore, in association with the World Bank, the government is establishing a $5 million revolving fund to provide microcredit to support fishermen and women to expand their operations. We also need to be mindful of the need to comply with the provisions of the Fisheries Act and the Fisheries Regulations, that's the famous LI 1968. This will ensure a well-regulated industry.
Some persons and committees were given a pat on the back for their immense contribution to the development of the sector. This year's celebration was on a theme, promoting sustainable fisheries and aquaculture for national development.
The Ghana Federation of the Disabled says in spite of a presidential directive to municipal and district assemblies to appoint their members, some assemblies have disregarded the directive. According to the advocacy officer of the Ghana Federation of the Disabled, Mr. Isaac Togon, their members have been denied the right and opportunity to serve their country.
The Ghana Federation of the Disabled is the umbrella body mandated to ensure the well-being of all members through advocacy. Disability is not inability when it comes to contributing one's quota to the development of the community. Based on this premise, the Ghana Federation of the Disabled has been encouraging its members to either avail themselves for election or nomination into the municipal or district assemblies where they can contribute meaningfully to national development. Whereas 19 people with disabilities secured jobs with the district assemblies in 2012, the number rose to 104 in 2014, including 79 others who were nominated by the president. However, in spite of the rise in the number of disabled people who got jobs with the assemblies, the Ghana National Federation of the Disabled say some of the assemblies are not heeding to the presidential directive that all assemblies should appoint or elect disabled members into the assemblies.
GFD petition to the president and subsequent follow-up meeting with the president were based on the realization that even though PWD contested election on an unequal basis with their counterparts without disability due to the inaccessible environment and attitudinal communication and informational barriers, there were no legal or policy provision like a quota to facilitate the participation of persons with disability in local and national decision-making processes.
The president of the federation, Mr. Yao Ofori Deborah, says working in the district assemblies will not only afford them the opportunity to contribute to the development of the districts, but also to articulate the concerns of members.
We realize that elections are not predictable. You can either win or lose. And since there is another window where people can get into the assemblies, we decided to also petition the president, who has the prerogative to appoint 30% of the various MMDAs. We made that petition, and fortunately, there has been some results. And two, to lament over some incidents that occur during these processes.
The Federation of the Disabled say their members should be given the opportunity to contribute their quota to national development.
Away from the capital, we're taking you up north. Although the MDG's target for water was about 89% covered, government and benevolent organizations are expected to raise the standard by ensuring that there is sustainability of facilities and services. Also, they are to ensure that inequalities in access in the urban and rural areas are bridged. This came up at the launch of the 26th Mole Conference in the Upper East Regional Capital, Bolgatanga. It was on the theme Financing Water and Sanitation within the Sustainable Development Goals.
A 2015 Joint Monitoring Program report by UNICEF and WHO indicates that sanitation is still a concern, with only 15% out of the population of almost 25,000 Ghanaians have access to sanitation facilities. The remaining 85% of Ghanaians either use shared toilets, 60% unimproved toilets, and others are forced to defecate in the open. Again, some communities endure days without safe water and are compelled to use unsafe water or buy from vendors at unfair prices. Participants at the event brought together, including chiefs, heads of departments, opinion leaders, and CSOs, brainstormed on how to improve on water and sanitation challenges in the country. The Upper East Regional Chairman of the National Planning Committee, NDPC, Mr. Donald Adabere, who launched the conference, implored traditional authorities to help maintain the country's water bodies and forest reserves, since their voices are always heard. He challenged MMDAs to attach more seriousness to issues concerning sanitation and potable water. The chairperson of Coalition of the Non-Governmental Organizations in Water and Sanitation, CONIWAS, Mrs. Maria Donchebe, said the theme for this year's Mole Conference, which is financing water and sanitation within the Sustainable Development Goals, options and strategies for Ghana, provides great impetus for UN member countries to begin aligning their policies, strategies and action plans to ensure their policy priorities are synchronized with the SDGs by 1st January next year, when the SDGs come into force. The Upper East Regional Minister, Mr. James Zugatiga, said government and CONIWAS are to establish a working committee to draft a term of reference for a water and sanitation fund.
The Ministry of Youth and Sports is to partner the Young Professionals and Youth Coalition to promote youth development and empowerment nationwide. Under the program, the youth will be equipped with leadership and entrepreneurial skills. This was disclosed by the Minister for Youth and Sports, Dr. Mustafa Ahmed, at the Young Professionals Transformational Leadership Conference in Accra.
The coalition consists of youth, students and professionals in the country. YPYC provides an existing opportunity to interact with like-minded professionals from all sectors of the economy. YPYC was established and founded by Mr. Andy Osei Okra in April 2007.
The aim of this conference is to build the capacity and equip participants with the ethical leadership skills we need in the 21st century to build our nation and our continent.
The 7th Young Professionals Transformational Leadership Conference afforded participants the opportunity to hear from seasoned speakers who have excelled in their fields of endeavors and business. They spoke on the theme, empowering the next generation of leaders for Africa.
Successful nation building requires good leaders. And as young people, you have a duty to prepare yourselves for future leadership that will make our nation great and strong. Clean hands are required, patriotism will be required, competence will be required, and the fear of the Lord will also be a great support.
We must believe that wrong is wrong, even if everybody is doing it. And what I'm happy about is that nobody here is called everybody. Each of us has a name. So when everybody is doing wrong, definitely it must be minus you.
The guest speaker for the occasion, Dr. Mustafa Ahmed, said government is confident in the abilities and capabilities of the youth and will continue to provide the needed infrastructure to provide a better and brighter future for the youth.
Government, recognizing the critical role the youth play in economic development, is working on a number of programs to further open up the sector and provide the necessary incentives to enable players act more meaningfully and provide services of global appeal.
Awards were given to institutions and young professionals who have been recognized as role models. Among those given awards were the First Lady, Mrs. Lordina Mahama, and the Director General of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, Major Albert Don Chebe. In an interview with GBC24, Mr. Don Chebe had an advice for the youth.
It is quite clear we are in challenging times in our country, and some of the information that comes out is not the best for all of us. However, we can only trust and hope that our youth, which is really the next generation who will come into leadership, would not learn from our bad habits, but maybe will recognize some of the successes that we have chalked, pick the successes and use them to move forward.
The late Stephen Adani Dankwa is the latest among GBC's committed journalists to have passed on, known in the radio newsroom of GBC by different names. He was a friend, a teacher and a mentor and a father. He was also known as Kofi Kofi. As the newsroom bids farewell to this patriot, we take a look at the professional life of Stephen Adani Dankwa.
The late Stephen Adani Dankwa was simply referred to in the radio newsroom as SAD, the abbreviation being the initials of his name, in line with newsroom tradition. After graduating from the Ghana Institute of Journalism, GIJ, he was hired by the GBC in October 1966 as a news reporter. A hard-working man by nature, he rose to the rank of editor-in-chief before retiring 10 years ago. He was one of the first GBC radio parliamentary correspondents during the first parliament of the Fourth Republic. Mr. Adani Dankwa, in his professional life, was a mentor, a teacher and a disciplinarian. His colleagues, Mr. Emmanuel Nikwe, Madame Susie Arthur, both retired, and Mr. George Ankra, attest to the dedication with which the late Adani Dankwa worked as a journalist in the newsroom. Mr. George Ankra, who worked under SAD, talks about how his strict supervision molded him.
I can vividly recall that he was such a meticulous worker. And each time you go on assignment and you are back, and he gets your script and realizes that you are not coherent in your package, he will call you, teach you, and scold you as well. We normally work under pressure. So as soon as he is done with his editing, the first thing you see him doing is he'll go into his office, carry a big long cap with a tea, and then he will come out joking with everybody. And each time he wants to leave the office late in the night, I always remember he will tell you, Senyami diyen kwancheya, yebe shia ochina.
The widow, Miss Josephine Somwa, says her husband fell sick on the 15th of August this year and was sent to the Nabita Hospital at Tema.
Maybe then you ready in Ayati was a Yetiakoyama, Yedin Komwa Nadi, Tebo 9:13. Near the knife, as I saw like God, there will be a could die. Table 2:30 to 3. No friend say, Auntie Joe, me home from you. I'm so. That home for us, I'm in Pomunia be here. Now, my friend and Quala said, that's in a home fan. Until you find a go hospital. Until you're my back home, I wear a straw and look at a car. Their friend say, I saw my dark until why no, then the car and my. And then you know, when I didn't call Nabita Hospital. Free so bad retirement, I'll call you Juma holiday. Every morning, beer or be jam a quiet or junction. Sanamako, Kurumako Yadi.
The last of his 4 children, Beatrice Adani Dankwa, says her father's death is a shock to the children because they were planning a party for him on his 70th birthday, which was just a week after his death.
Daddy was selfless. He was very humble. Then he's helpful. When you tell him to do something, if it is within his means, he will do it for you and he will do it perfectly. Yes.
The late Adani Dankwa did not shirk his responsibilities to God and the church. He worked as an administrator at the Community 3 Presbyterian congregation at Tema. As Kofi embarks on his journey to eternity, we join the Presbyterian Tree Hymnal to refresh our minds that this world is a sport, a pastime and a temporary enjoyment of delusive things, but those who have Christ have hope. Kofi.
And may his soul rest in peace. We'll take a short break here. When we return, we have business news.
A very good evening. My name is Maurice Ogbete, and it's a pleasure to come your way with the latest from the world of business. This package is brought to you by EcoBank, Airtel, and Hisense. Now, the finance minister, Seth Terkper, says the government will go back to the bond market before the end of 2015 to raise another $500 million. Mr. Terkper cited the overheating in the Chinese economy, the decline in commodity prices, and the uncertainty over the interest rate on the dollar as some of the reasons government could not issue the entire $1.5 billion it had received approval for.
2 weeks ago, the government issued a $1 billion Eurobond at a coupon rate of 10.75% for 15 years. This is the 4th Eurobond by the government since 2008. The bond is a soft one with a tenure of 15 years with payment to be made in 2028, 2029 and 2030. The principal will be paid in 3 installments of $333 million in 2028 and 2029 and $334 million in 2030. The 15-year tenure means Ghana has become the first sub-Saharan African country to successfully issue a 15-year bond. However, financial analysts have described the 10.75% coupon rate as very expensive and will affect the country's debt sustainability in the long run. However, the Finance Minister, Seth Terkper, justified the move by government to opt for $1 billion at a rate of 10.75, pointing to the prevailing market conditions, including the slowdown in the Chinese market, fall in commodity prices, as well as the fall in the oil market.
The markets are dry because China is slowing. The markets are dry because the Fed Reserve has not, or the Fed, or what we call the Federal Reserve, the U.S. Central Bank, has not been able to announce firmly, when they are going to increase interest rates. Everybody knows that they will increase it.
On why the government issued only $1 billion instead of $1.5 billion, the government got approval for, Mr. Terkper said the conditions at the time was not favorable, but was quick to add the market is still being monitored to issue the remaining $500 million.
We did not issue the 500 additional because of market conditions. The same conditions for which we are sometimes it's become contentious whether we should have taken, we should have borrowed at a 10.75%. We still have an approval from Parliament for 1.5 for 2015.
He added the government is drafting a bill that will enable municipal assemblies to go to the bond market to issue bonds to finance development projects.
The idea is that as our cities and metropolitan assemblies in particular, the municipal and metropolitan assemblies show this capability because they have it, they will be able to show that I'm able to generate revenue and take their own loan, just like the government does through sovereign bonds. They will be able to raise it through municipal bonds. Why? Because as we become a lower middle income country, our access to grants and concessional financing are going to dwindle.
Mr. Terkper said the entire $1 billion will be used to refinance existing loans contracted by the government.
Let's do some banking now. The National Investment Bank realized a pre-tax profit of 106 million Ghana cedis in the 2014 financial year, as against 38 million Ghana cedis in the year 2013. The chief executive of the bank, Mr. Ernest Agbesi, says the bank will make a pre-tax profit of 130 million Ghana cedis by the end of 2015.
The National Investment Bank was established by the government 52 years ago. The bank has over the years extended its branches across the length and breadth of the country. According to management, the bank is instituting measures to open more branches. The bank has opened 7 new branches this year in addition to its 28 branches and hopes to add 7 more by the close of the year. The bank's main objective is to promote small and medium-scale enterprises to serve as a catalyst for national development. In line with its objectives, the bank launched a week-long activity to promote small and medium-scale enterprises at Ashaiman, near Tema. To climax the event, a cocktail was organized in honor of its cherished customers at Takoradi. The chief executive of the bank, Mr. Ernest Agbesi, throws more light on the bank's performance over the years.
In 2013, our pre-tax profit was 38 million Ghana cedis. In 2014, we made 106 million Ghana cedis. And 2015, we are sure to make at least 130 million Ghana cedis.
Staff and customers of the bank also undertook a 6-kilometer health walk through designated routes within the Sekondi Takoradi metropolis. The walk ended at the Takoradi Sports Club, where they were taken through some aerobics. Mr. Ernest Agbesi congratulated both staff and customers of the bank for their dedication.
NIB has come back to life, and And we have customers who are so loyal to us that even they are prepared to walk with us for about 9-10 kilometers. My cherished customers, I am most grateful to you.
A customer of the bank, Ms. Sabina Okran, was grateful to the bank for its support.
Still business live on GBC24. Avgri Ghana and John Deere, leading dealers in farming machinery in the country, have introduced new agricultural machines onto the market. The machines are to help improve mechanization of agriculture, especially in low-income areas.
Avgri is one of the largest South African-based agriculture companies with 80 years experience in agriculture mechanization and big investments in poultry, animal feeds and collateral management. The company is a subsidiary of John Deere, an Indian agriculture-based firm that was established in Africa over 7 decades. Together, the two have helped to provide local farmers with agriculture machines at affordable prices. Some of the new range of agriculture machines introduced are slashers, harvesters, planters, plows, reapers and irrigation machines. The country director of Avgri Ghana, Mr. Gail Jordan, said John Deere Financial has been set up to make the equipment more affordable.
We're partnering with Sanape Aba and John Deere Financial and financing the projects and have a very low buy-down rate. The rate at the moment is running at about 21%, so it's affordable for the customers and they can pay back over 3 years' time. So as they work with the equipment, they can pay it back.
The West African Director General for John Deere, Mr. Kobus Dutoy, said mechanized agriculture in Ghana is very low and such equipment will help in boosting it.
People still think they need to go and retire when they go on the farm, but it's actually a business today. People can make money out of agriculture.
Some dealers in machines by Avgri and John Deere lauded the companies for consistently introducing equipment to improve productivity.
Over to the interbank market quickly, where the dollar is trading at 3 Ghana cedis 80 pesos, the pound at 5 cedis 85 pesos, and the euro at 4 cedis 23 pesos. On the international commodities market, a barrel of oil is selling at $44.66, an ounce of gold at $1,063, and a ton of cocoa at $3,135. And that was business brought to you by EcoBank, Airtel, and Hisense. The news continues.
Welcome back to the health segment brought to you by FPAC blows your pain away. Medical equipment such as chemistry analyzers are used to determine the concentration of certain proteins or drugs in samples of serum, urine and other body fluids. Although the School of Biomedical and Allied Health Sciences has some of these equipment, they lack the requisite upgrades, and as a result, the students do not enjoy the full benefits of their training. Good news is that the school has been presented with a modern model of a chemistry analyzer.
We don't have a lot of modern equipment to train the students as far as analyzing the body fluids to determine the diseases are concerned.
This is the Chemical Pathology Laboratory, one of the few laboratories in the Department of Medical Sciences of the School of Biomedical and Allied Health Sciences. It is the only clinical chemistry laboratory in the entire school for teaching and faculty research. According to the Dean of the School of Biomedical and Allied Health Sciences, Professor Patrick Ayekumi, most of the current laboratory equipment being used are not good enough for effective teaching and medical research.
Relatively, I can say that it's not the best, but this is the best that we have right now for us as a school. We are looking at upgrading our laboratories, refurbishing the laboratories, and re-equipping the labs to bring them to standards so that we can train our students effectively as expected. In this regard, then, any public-private kind of partnership that would help in upgrading the laboratories would be something that would actually be happy to have.
To help ease the strain on the laboratory, MedLab, a clinical medical laboratory, has presented a new state-of-the-art automated chemistry analyzer to the school to facilitate effective study.
Not every laboratory will allow a student to work on these instruments. So it will bring them up to date, it will make them more marketable, and it will decrease the time that we and other labs have to train them.
Meanwhile, the School of Biomedical and Allied Health Sciences needs more of such equipment. Most of what they have are obsolete.
Also in health, in Ghana, baked white clay, which is commonly referred to as ayilo in Ghana, is usually eaten by pregnant women. Nowadays, the business is becoming very lucrative as women who are not even pregnant consume it. Some take it when they are indisposed, others consume it for no special reasons. But the question is, are there any nutritional benefits associated with ayilo? And can it be harmful to the health of an individual?
For most people, ayilo is made from white clay, which has been molded and baked for human consumption. An ayilo manufacturer in Accra, Madam Rejoice, hinted that ayilo is not made from clay, but rather a white stone which is pounded, molded, and baked. She added that the business is very lucrative as it serves as their main source of income.
This one, we are selling it for 10 for 20 10 pesos. We are selling it. Yes. Small one, 10 for 10 pesos. The big one, 6 for, and 7 for 20 pesos.
With several complications surrounding pregnancy, some pregnant women eat ayilo in order not to feel nauseous. This is what some pregnant women had to say.
I have a habit of eating ayilo, but at a point I heard it was not good and I stopped. My advice to the public is that they should stop eating ayilo because it is not good. It can cause infections in the unborn child.
Speaking to GBC24, a gynecologist at the La General Hospital, Dr. Amma Tamate, said there are no nutritional benefits from ayilo. She emphasized that the intake of ayilo can be very harmful to both the mother and the unborn child because it induces anemia.
Ayilo, like I said earlier, is basically white clay. So when you eat ayilo, you are eating soil or sand. And it has no proven medical benefits. However, it also contains organic material. For example, the eggs of some worms. These, when you eat, can grow in your body, inside your gut, grow into the adult worm, and they can drink your blood, literally speaking.
Medical professionals caution the general public, especially pregnant women, to avoid the consumption of ayilo since it can be dangerous to their health.
And that's it for health, brought to you by FPAC, blows your pain away. We'll be back with some international news. Welcome back. In some international news, Ivory Coast will hold its first presidential elections since the country's second civil war, which was triggered by electoral dispute 5 years ago. The war left some 3,000 people dead and at least 500,000 others displaced. Though the West African neighbor has seen some stability and economic revival under incumbent President Alassane Ouattara, the threat of post-election violence looms in the face of complaints of economic inequality and political witch hunting. Sunday's elections will be a major test for Ivorian democracy, with a burden on the ultimate winner to spread economic prosperity across the country and rebuild and help the country regain its former status as the world's top cocoa producer. And Ivorians living in Ghana are expected to vote in the general elections come Sunday. Joining us this evening in the studio is the president of the Ivorian community in Ghana, Mr. Ndua DB Gaston. Hello, sir. Many thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here too.
So Sunday, you are going to the polls. Do we know the number of Ivorians here in Ghana?
Thank you very much, madam, for the opportunity given to me. We are about 4,000 Ivorians living here in Ghana, and about 843 have been registered to vote on Sunday.
Okay. Are you supposed to travel to Ivory Coast to vote, or?
No. Those of us living here have been registered here, so we can vote here on Sunday at the Embassy of Cote d'Ivoire here in Accra, also.
Okay, so those who are going out to vote, what are they supposed to bring along? How is the process going to be like on Sunday?
We have to come with our voter's ID. When you get to the polling station, you just show it. They will check if your name is there, then you enter your vote, and then you go back home.
Yeah. I know you're here in Ghana, but do you know how preparations are back in your country? Are you ready for the elections on Sunday?
For sure, since the date has been set and nobody has denied it, I believe things are well on track for the election to be held on Sunday.
Okay. And then there are 8 presidential candidates running for the post. Do you foresee a second round? Or you think it's just going to be a one-time
The Constitution says we need to have absolute majority, which should be at least 51%. Okay. Now, if there is no candidate reaching the figure, I believe there's going to be a second term.
So you think there might be a second term? Or?
I can't predict.
Okay. And reports indicate that issues of unfair wealth distribution and tribal politics are coming up strongly in the campaign. Given that Cote d'Ivoire has a history of post-election violence, is that a recipe for disaster?
We are all praying what we witnessed 5 years ago should no more come again. You just stated that there was a war following the 2010 election, and nobody is willing that this happen again. So we are all praying to God that this election remain a very peaceful one.
We all hope so then. But any final words that you would want to give?
Thank you very much. I would like to call on all my countrymen, on my fellow Ivorians. 5 years ago, we had an election in the country which was followed by a severe war. A lot of people, thousands of people died. But we all know that elections are held in every country every at least 4 or 5 years. We are calling on all Ivorians to go to the embassy and collect the voter's ID, and on Sunday, very peacefully go to the polling stations at the Cote d'Ivoire embassy here in Accra also, and vote peacefully for our country to witness peace and for development to come our way.
Thank you very much for speaking to us this evening. We've been talking to Mr. Ndua DB Gaston, and he's the president of the Ivorian community here in Ghana. And that's it on the international front. We'll be back with sports.
Good evening and updates from the world of sports. I'm Theophilus Sampa. This is in partnership with Tobinco Pharmaceuticals Limited, producers of Lunat. Now, the national tennis team, the Golden Rackets, have received a $10,000 from Interplus Ghana Limited. This means they can now participate in the 2015 Davis Cup competition in Egypt. Scheduled to participate in this year's Davis Cup Zone 3 qualifiers, which starts on October 26 in Cairo, Egypt. Since the team won gold at the just ended All Africa Games in Congo-Brazzaville, the Ghana Tennis Federation has been struggling to raise the needed money to prepare for the Davis Cup. Ghana needs to send a team of 5 players to Cairo for the championships. With the Federation racing against time to get the needed funds for this all-important international assignment, Interplus Ghana Limited has come to their aid. They have presented a check for $10,000.
We at Interplus believe in giving back to the society. We had been supporting many initiatives in healthcare, education, and sports. And we also believe the youth is the future of this country. We have done our part contribution into up to $10,000. We wish this will help them to move forward, and they'll go to the next level and make the country proud.
The sponsorship committee chairman of the Ghana Tennis Federation, Mr. Kobe Brew, was grateful.
Thank you to Interplus. You've proven that this relationship that we have with you is going to last forever. We're so grateful for this support, especially considering the very short notice that we approached you for help. I'm sure the nation is going to be proud of you, and I'm assuring you that the tennis team is going to work hard to place Ghana on the tennis map.
The team says its morale is high. They are now expected to battle and qualify Ghana to the more lucrative Euro-Africa zone. The second stage of the National Cycling Tour has ended in Accra. Abdul Razak Momin, based in Kumasi, won the 85-kilometer course in a time of 2 hours and 15 minutes. The National Cycling Competition entered day 2 today. 72 cyclists from 12 clubs took part in the 85-kilometer course, which stretched from the Accra Sports Stadium to Mamfe and back to the Accra Sports Stadium. Abdul Razak Momin, based in Kumasi, took control of the race as he crossed the finishing line with a time of 2 hours and 15 minutes. He took the gold medal and products from sponsors. The race will end tomorrow. That's all for sports.
In entertainment news tonight, brought to you by GTP, Oga and Don Papa Jensen Bitters. Grandma's Jesus is a religious play scheduled for tomorrow at the Christ the King Parish Hall. Some of the cast of the play were on Showbiz segment on GBC24.
The way they take Jesus so personal, the way they give their all, they trust, they believe. It inspired me to write a script to bring into character a person like that grandmother that will personalize Jesus, to give people the idea how you can reach, how you can lean on Jesus, how you can get close to Jesus and then take Jesus to be your one and all. So it's like the relationship my grandma has with his Jesus that inspired Grandma's Jesus.
Okay.
Theater is my passion. And play is very challenging. You are able to stretch yourself. You see, for movie it takes a while. We'll do movie in the future, but now play.
It's play.
Yeah.
Okay. Who is Uncle Richie?
He has a wife and 2 kids, but he's dating this beautiful, smart, ambitious young lady. And
alongside your wife?
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. Okay.
How do you see the Ghana theater work?
Theater is very, very expensive.
Sure.
But I think that Uncle Ibu is doing a great work. Uncle Ibu, I take my inspiration from him. Yeah. He's doing a great work. And people are patronizing. Gradually, people are coming to love theater.
Some freestyle.
Naturally. Look, no woman deserves the caramel crafted words I have for you.
Hey.
I mean, your eyebrows.
Hello.
Your eyebrows. I think it's Peruvian.
Hey.
Your nostrils, the hair in your nostrils looks Brazilian.
Oh my God.
Back with news tonight at 10:30.